July 29th, 2023. It's the 9th round, and Errol Spencer Jr. falls motionless down to the ring. The bell rings, and the crowd goes absolutely wild. Terence "Bud" Crawford is now the undisputed welterweight champion and one of the few boxers to be undisputed in 2 divisions. Just 1 year prior, on May 15, 2022, Jermell Charlo settled the score with Brian Costello to become undisputed at 154 pounds and won the light middleweight title. Videos show Crawford calling out Jermell mid-fight, with the best speculations saying Crawford was telling Jermell, "You're next." After this, the usual chain reaction of taunts, tweets, and Twitter videos went off, and we're at deciding the exact dates for the fights today. Okay, so you know the history, but what about each champion's boxing style? Why is this even worth talking about? Because instead of saying an outright prediction, you and I first need to understand the very basics of their talents to come to a logical conclusion. That makes sense, right? So stick with me because I'm going to be delving deep into various interesting aspects about both fighters. Let's kick things off with Jermell Charlo. Standing at 5 feet 11 inches, he has a reach of 73 inches and is 33 years old. His stance is orthodox and his boxing style is, well, simple but devastating. His left hook is insanely powerful, and he uses this extreme talent in arguably one of the most intelligent ways. You won't see him outright rushing in to get opportunities to land some heavy shots. Instead, he fights almost like a cobra, slowly but patiently pushing his opponents into positions where he uses his devastating left hook to deal serious damage in mainly 2 ways. Either he uses a counter left hook, like in his fight against Harrison, or a direct body shot like with this punch in his fight against Hatley. While this boxing style is pretty simple, in the heat of the moment, it gets very difficult to identify what's happening to you if you don't have enough boxing IQ. Take a look at any of his fights as an example. Speaking of boxing IQ, let's move on to Terence because that man is like a grandmaster at a kid's chess tournament. But I'll explain what that means in a bit. Before that, let's talk stats. Terence stands at 5 feet 8 inches with a 74-inch reach, has a southpaw and orthodox stance, and is currently 35 years old. Sure, that's pretty standard, but the true magic lies within his fighting style. It is absolutely unlike anything you've seen. To dumb it down a bit, Terence has a switch boxing style. But what does that lingo even mean? Let me explain. Terence quite literally changes his boxing style to counter his opponents. He analyzes how his opponent moves, what his weaknesses are, and then pries open those flaws he finds. And a slight practice that you might have never noticed is how smartly he uses his jab to gauge and find openings in his opponent. Once he finds that opening, he will go completely insane with his offense. Couple this with his ability to use both stances, and he is an absolute demon in the ring. How about you and I talk about one last aspect before deciding who will win? And arguably, this is the most important one because it gives you the most logical prediction possible. Starting off with Jermell Charlo, he's fought a total of 37 fights and won 35, with 19 wins by knockout. This gives him nearly a 95% win rate and a 51% knockout rate. Seems pretty decent. What do you think? On the other hand, we have Terence Crawford, who has fought 40 fights, won all of them, and 31 of those wins are by knockout. That equates to him having a flawless record with nearly a whopping 78% knockout rate. Now, before you ask about the difference in the rates of both fighters, let me give you some background. Terence has been fighting since he was 7 years old. Most of us were still stuck playing with Legos at that point. He had 70 amateur bouts during his training and lost 12 times, but still managed to defeat world champion level potential contenders like Mikey Garcia and Danny Garcia. Being such a talent for his times, he rightfully set his eyes on the Olympics as any sane athlete would. Still, these ambitions would end with his defeat against Saddam Ali, who was an Olympic national champion. However, Jermell had similar ambitions, which would eventually come to fruition. Much sooner, in fact. While Jermell started his professional career at 17 in 2007, he had an amateur record of 56 wins and 8 losses before that.
Feel like, he stand on your 10 toes on everything that he say or do. I feel like Jermell is just, one of those guys that do a lot for attention. I was cool with Jermell and Jermall and their older brother, you know, prior to me moving up in weight. You got messages with he hit me up, and you know what I mean, asking me pull up. He gonna pull up in Omaha, and we talking about cars. We talking about all different type of stuff, you know what I mean? For him to start bashing me and talking bad about me and saying I'm gonna get knocked out and, you know, going out his way to say little slick shit about me, I was just like, man, that's some hoe shit. Like, we don't do shit like that. Like, if you cool with him and you more cool with him, just say that and then just keep it pushing. You don't gotta act no extra way and doing all that extra shit. Earl gonna knock his ass out. Do this, we doing that. We Texas boys, this, that. Man, you from Louisiana, bro. Come on, man.
But Terence Crawford, problem is he never was with the right people. Before this, he just got with PBC. He just signed over and got with the right program to me. So that's why he was able to make that Errol Spence fight. You know what I'm saying? And so now that he get, you know, his feet wet a little bit, and he liking the promotion and he liking all of that, you know, he want to bite off a little bit too much he could chew.
So, now we know everything we need to. Let's make our prediction together. 3, 2, 1. Terence Crawford. Now, if both of us guessed the same name, you can see why the conclusion is what it is. For those of you who didn't, let's put everything together to make something cohesive. It is true that Jermell's power is miles ahead of Terence's. I mean, that dude's left hand is packed with something insane. One hit from that, and Terence would be out cold. But besides that one highly specialized aspect, what else is there? Jermell's entire game plan usually relies on unconsciously making the opponent provide openings to attack. But that only works when your opponent is either at the same level as you or below it. That's apparent when you see Jermell's fight record. He isn't really consistent, which is probably one of the most important aspects of being a boxer. When Jermell is faced against a boxer who has an inhuman mechanical technique and a mind-blowing ring IQ, it'll become very difficult to execute his normal boxing style. For Terence, his fight against Spence wasn't even his hardest one. He still considers fights from nearly a decade ago, like the one against Yuriorkis Gamboa, amongst his toughest ones. So, could you imagine the amount of training he's gone through since then? Some of you might say that Jermell has the height advantage. Well, while that is true to some extent, it isn't the end-all be-all in boxing. Take Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis as an example. It's like pairing up a Power Ranger and a Teletubby against one another, but Davis destroyed Ryan. Unfortunately, that's all the reasoning I can give you for now, because if I keep explaining, this might take up an entire day. So I hope you loved what I had to say up until this point. Let me know your thoughts about this fight down below in the comments. Check out my other videos for more fight analyses. And if my prediction was incorrect, you can come back to this video and let me know how immensely wrong I was. I'll happily accept. Until then, goodbye.